Morning, everyone. Today in this lecture, we will start about discussing the various fundamentals, the basics of organic reaction mechanism. What are the different basic concepts? And in this series, this is the very first lecture, and we will discuss all the different type of organic reaction mechanisms one by one. So let us start. What is the organic reaction mechanism? As we have seen so many times that all the reaction mechanisms in organic chemistry, they are actually not a single step, except for the pericyclic reaction, which are having a concerted mechanism. All the other organic reactions, they are involving various steps. So many elementary steps are involved, and these reactions are actually made up of different steps, and when you club all the elementary steps together, this becomes the organic reaction mechanism. So whenever we are explaining, whenever we are writing the reaction mechanism on paper, we draw certain arrows, and they are actually very important when you are writing down the mechanism, because they are actually showing the electronic movement and different elementary steps in a particular reaction mechanism. They all are actually characterized by different electronic movements. So when you draw these arrow pushings, it becomes really important to understand how do we draw them and what do they reflect. So first of all, we will discuss about the uh, how we are putting down these arrows. So when we are talking about the mechanism by which one molecule is getting converted into another, you have to show the movement of electron. There is some movement of the electron which is taking place from one to another, and that is how the one molecule is getting transformed into the other. So it is a means of showing the way electrons which are involved in the bond, they move when one compound is transformed into other. So that is shown by the arrow pushing, and this arrow pushing is employed to illustrate the mechanisms in organic chemistry. So consider a very simple protonation reaction. What do we mean by the protonation reaction? When we are adding a proton to a molecule, that is a protonation reaction. And the reverse of it is deprotonation reaction, when you are removing a proton from the molecule, so it becomes deprotonation. So let us consider a very simple case of protonation of the ammonia molecule. So you know that ammonia molecule, it has a nitrogen and three hydrogen attached to the nitrogen. Nitrogen atom is containing a lone pair of electrons, and when you apply the proton here, H plus, so this proton is actually attacking on the nitrogen and forming an unstable bond, and this positive charge is transferred over the nitrogen molecule, nitrogen atom. And now, what do you get after the protonation reaction? This is ammonium ion, right? From the ammonia molecule, we are getting the ammonium ion. So what is happening in this process? The lone pair of electron on the nitrogen. We have lone pair of electron on the nitrogen, and now they have become a bonding pair in the product. These electrons are now making a bond with the hydrogen, right? And that is how the electrons are transferred to the hydrogen, and the positive charge of hydrogen is now present on the nitrogen itself. So we are getting ammonium ion in this process. Now, how will you draw these arrow pushings? How will you show the movement of electron? So now, let us see how we show the reaction with the curved mechanistic arrow. So these are the two electrons on the nitrogen atom, and they are actually going to the hydrogen. So we draw this arrow like this. You draw the arrow like this, because this arrow is showing what? Movement of electron, and movement of electron is taking place from nitrogen to hydrogen. So the direction of the arrow is showing what? Electrons are moving here, and the tail of the arrow is showing from the place where electrons are getting moved. So from nitrogen to hydrogen, these electrons are getting transferred, and you will draw this arrow like this. So finally you get ammonium ion. Similarly, you can also make an unstable dash bond, which shows the electrostatic attraction between the two atoms, and that after that, what happens? The electronic movement takes place, which we are showing by the curved arrow. And after this type of electronic transfer, now we get the ammonium ion, that is NH4 plus. So the definition of the formal charge, it means that arrow pushing also shows the movement of the formal charge during a reaction. So this arrow pushing, we are using that to show from where, from which direction, from which molecule, from which atom the electrons are getting moved, and the arrow head is showing us the direction in which they are moving, on which atom they are getting transferred. So during the protonation, the formal charge is moving from the proton to the nitrogen atom. So the formal charge is moving in opposite direction of the movement of the electron. So this arrowhead is also representing the movement of the formal charge. Movement of the formal charge is reverse to the direction of the arrow, right? So it is showing two things to us. Arrow pushing is showing us the movement of the electron, direction of the movement of the electron, and also the movement of the formal charge. So once you are drawing the arrow like this, now the charge will be sent against the direction of the arrow. So this will be the direction of the electronic movement, and this will be the direction of the formal charge movement. So formal charge is moving from proton to the nitrogen atom, and now the positive charge is shown here on the nitrogen, because now it has donated the electrons to hydrogen. So this makes sense because in the protonation, the nitrogen has donated a full pair of electrons. But in the product shares a bonding pair, a net loss of one electron. So the proton H plus, on the other hand, has no electrons originally, but now it shares a bonding pair, a net gain of one electron. Hence, the drop in the charge is from plus 1 to 0. So now it is not having any charge, and because the nitrogen has given one of the electron to hydrogen, now it will attain one positive charge. So we represent this movement of an electron pair as a curly arrow, and you should note the direction of the flow. So from this curly arrow, what I am representing, the nitrogen atom formal charge was initially 0, and H plus formal charge, and actual charge was plus 1. Now from this arrow movement, I am showing that nitrogen is having a net loss of 1 electron, and hydrogen is having a net gain of 1 electron. So when the electron gain is there, the hydrogen will lose its charge, and when there is electron loss, now the nitrogen will gain the positive charge. So now in the product, you can see nitrogen atom formal charge is plus 1, and hydrogen formal charge is equal to 0. You should note that the lone pair on the nitrogen, it becomes the bonding pair in the NH bond. Now let us look at the reverse direction, that is the deprotonation reaction. So in the deprotonation, the proton that was added on the ammonium ion, now it is lost. And this is what? Removal of the proton from the ammonium ion. So this is deprotonation reaction, that is removal of the proton. So now what happens? Now again, if you draw the arrow, curved arrow, the formal charge has moved from nitrogen to hydrogen. This is because the hydrogen was sharing an electron pair on the left hand side, and it has none on the right hand side. So net loss of one electron is for the hydrogen. So now you will draw the arrow in the opposite direction like this. Now electrons are coming back to the nitrogen, and the formal charge is going to the hydrogen. So this is how we show the reaction with a curved mechanistic arrow, and this arrow is very important when you are writing down the mechanism. By merely looking at the arrow, you can understand what type of electronic changes are taking place in that elementary step. So note how it shows the bonding pair movement out of the bond and towards the nitrogen atom. Now in reality, what happens, the proton is usually removed by a base. It is not that proton just leaves the ammonium ion by itself. You require a certain base to be present there, which will abstract the proton. Whenever the proton abstraction or any deprotonation reaction takes place, it is not that the proton is leaving the molecule by itself. You require a base. You require presence of a base for such reaction. So, if you have taken a base here, suppose this is a methoxide ion which is acting as a base, and it is containing negative charge over it. So, this methoxide ion is doing what? It is abstracting proton, and now you have to draw the arrow. So, these electrons on the methoxide ion, they are attacking on the hydrogen atom. When they are attacking on the hydrogen atom, what they are doing, they are displacing the electron pair away from the hydrogen. They will repel the electron pair away from the hydrogen, and when the electrons are repelling away from the hydrogen, they are going back to the nitrogen, and the movement of the formal charge will be in the opposite direction. So now, when the electrons are forced towards the nitrogen, what will happen? The positive charge on nitrogen will come on the hydrogen. And as soon as a positive charge comes over the hydrogen, what happens here? Now it will be deprotonated. It will be removed by forming H plus, and it is now combined with the O negative. So what happens now? You get a CH3OH here, and the proton is removed from the ammonium ion. So here the formal charge also moves, and the nitrogen goes from +1 to 0 because it gains a net 1 electron. Oxygen goes from -1 to 0 because overall it loses 1 electron. And you should note that the sum of the charges in the product, it should equal to sum of the charges on the reactant. So that should not change whenever you are drawing certain mechanism. The overall charge should not change. So we know that organic reactions, they are generally of four different types, and for each of the reaction mechanism we can go into details. So generally the organic reactions, they are classified into four categories, and they all are having the polar intermediates, right? They involved with the electronic movements, and you can show the electronic movements in their intermediate mechanism. So first of all, we have substitution reaction, and in the substitution reaction, in the one organic molecule, one group is replaced by another group, and this is the substitution. So the substitution, when it is taken when it is taking place by some nucleophile reagent that is looking for the nucleus, looking for the positive charge and having a high electron density, you call it a nucleophilic substitution. And when this substitution is performed by some electrophilic reagent, some electrophilic species which is looking for electrons and being positively charged itself, being electron deficient itself, it is looking for the electrons. So it is called electrophile. So when the electrophilic agent, it is attacking on a molecule and replacing or substituting another group, you call it electrophilic substitution. So substitution reactions, they can be nucleophilic, they can be electrophilic, and that depends upon the type of the attacking reagent. Now you can further divide them into so many other categories, and specifically for the nucleophilic substitution reaction, if you see that what is the order of the reaction. So if the order of the reaction is 1, we call it SN1, and when the order of the reaction is 2, we call it SN2. So these two are very important reaction mechanisms in the organic chemistry, and we will discuss them in detail. Then second comes the elimination reaction, and these elimination reactions, they are actually accompanied by elimination of small molecules. During the course of the reaction, small molecules are eliminated, and whenever the elimination takes place, it will lead to the formation of a double or triple bond, right? Whenever you are removing certain atoms from the molecule, they will lead to the formation of double or triple bond, because now the ultimately the carbon has to satisfy the four valency. So when you are removing some atoms from the carbon, now it will form double or triple bond with the other carbon. So these elimination reactions, they can be again E2 reactions, even reaction mechanism, that depends on the order and the molecularity of the reaction. Then the third type of reaction, which are again very common in the organic chemistry, they are the addition reactions. And in the addition reaction, the simple thing that is happening is addition of a particular group. A small group is getting added, and where will it add? You cannot add certain group on the tetravalent carbon, right? If a carbon is having groups on four valencies, you cannot add anything else, because you cannot exceed the valency of the carbon from 4 to 5. So it is not possible that your saturated hydrocarbons, they are showing additions, right? For the saturated compounds, when all the carbons, they are having four different four groups on their four valencies. So in that case, you will see the substitution reaction, or you can see the elimination reaction. But addition reactions, they are very special reaction of those compounds which contain double and triple bond. Now that double and triple bond, that can be between the two carbon atoms, and between the carbon and some heteroatom, or between two heteroatoms. So the addition reaction, they are actually, they can take place only on the doubly or triply bonded organic molecules. Only the double and triple bonds. They have actually free valency which on which they can add some other molecule. So they are characteristic of the unsaturated compounds. Lastly, we have rearrangement reactions, and these rearrangement reactions, they are intramolecular reactions, right? Intramolecular reaction in which some molecule, some part of the molecule is getting detached from one place and attaching itself to another atom within the same molecule. So what happens at the end, in the product you get a rearranged molecule. So they are the rearrangement reaction, and so many rearrangement reactions are known in the organic chemistry. So once you understand all these type of reaction mechanisms, it becomes really easy to apply them and to assist your knowledge of the organic chemistry. So first of all, we will start with the substitution reactions, and in the substitution reaction, first of all, let us see the nucleophilic substitution reaction, which are really very common. So let us consider the reaction of bromomethane. This is bromomethane, or you say methyl bromide, and a nucleophile such as the hydroxide anion is attacking on it. So nucleophile is what, like I told you, it is a reagent which is looking for the nucleus, looking for the positive charge. So this hydroxide anion, it is containing a electron pair, unshared electron pair, and now what happens, due to that unshared electron pair, it becomes a nucleophile. So on this molecule, on this alkyl halide molecule, where will it attack? What is the possibility? Will it attack on the carbon atom, or it will attack on the bromine atom? So your simple wisdom says what? The bromine is a electronegative atom, and what will happen? This type of covalent bond, it is not a non-polar covalent bond. It is a polar covalent bond, because the bromine, it will do what? Due to the high electronegativity, it will draw the electron pair toward itself, and as a result of this, you can see that there will not be exactly a positive charge like the ions have in the ionic compound, but yes, there is a polarity in the bond, and the electron pairs, they are shifted more towards the bromine molecule. So as a result of this, the carbon atom, it will develop a partial positive charge, and that partial positive charge over the carbon makes it a place of the attack of nucleophile. So this nucleophile will come here. You can also see that the nucleophile, when it approaches to the carbon, now the electron density is shifted towards the bromine, and now what happens, this bromine is replaced by the hydroxide. So it cannot attack the carbon from this side, right? It will attack it from the position which is vacant. So it will attack from the back side of the carbon atom. And now you can see that the substitution has taken place. So because the nucleophile has performed the substitution, you call it a nucleophilic substitution. This reaction works because the nucleophile hydroxide is attracted to the partial positive charge on the carbon atom. The bromide anion must be displaced because the carbon atom can only be surrounded by a maximum of 8 electrons. So it is not possible that the carbon atom will combine with both the hydroxide and bromide. So once the hydroxide reaches to the carbon, because it is more nucleophile, it will displace, it will repel the electron pair of the bromine, and these electron pair, now they will be permanently shifted to the bromine, and the bromine is removed here. The bromide ion is removed here by shifting the electron pair towards the bromine. So in this manner, the nucleophilic substitution reaction is complete. Now let us see how the arrow pushings can be drawn here. So when you are showing the electronic movement, you are using these arrow pushings. Let us see how we can do that. So this hydroxide anion, it is approaching to the positively charged carbon, partial positive charge on the carbon. So these electron pairs on the oxygen in the hydroxide, they are actually they are moving towards the carbon, right? So we will draw a curved arrow here like this. And what about the electrons of the carbon? So the shared electron pairs of carbon and bromine, they are more shifted towards the bromine right now. So one of the factors is the electronegativity of the bromine, and another factor is the repulsion by the electron pair present on the hydroxide ion. They are also repelling the hydrogen to go away from the carbon. So these electron pair, they are moving like this. They are moving in the direction of the bromine. So what happens? Now the OH, it is getting attached on the carbon, and these electrons, they are now totally present on the bromide, so they have now become the shared electron pair is now present on the bromine atom itself, and now it is displaced by the hydroxide, which is a stronger nucleophile. Now you can also draw it like this. These are the remote forces of attraction working between the hydroxide ion and partially positive carbon. So the attack takes place like this, and as a result of this, we get a substituted product at the end of the reaction. So you can note that how the negative charge, it moves from the left to right in this mechanism, and the movement of the electron is actually shown by the arrows. So this is the case of the arrow pushing that we have drawn for the substitution reaction. Now, in some cases, like in the previous case, you saw that we have taken the substrate as methyl bromide, and the carbon is containing three hydrogen atoms. So these hydrogens are very small size atoms, and whenever they are present on the carbon, now what happens, the attack is taking place from the backside of the molecule, right? Like we have seen that, because at the front of the carbon atom we have bromine attached, so the OH cannot attack from that side. It has to take some another path, so it attacks from the carbon atom from the backside of the molecule. So what is when you do not have hydrogens there, when you have when you have some bulky group attached to the carbon in the alkyl halide, like you can see that here in this we have the carbon connected to three methyl groups. This is a tertiary butyl group, right? And you have in place of the hydrogen you have three methyls, and they are attached to the bromine. Now what will happen? Now when the OH minus, when it will attack on this molecule, what will happen? It cannot go even from the backside, because now these three bulky groups, three methyl groups, they are surrounding the carbon from all over the place. So it is not possible for the OH minus to attack on the backside of the carbon, and neither from the front side of the carbon. So now what will happen when the OH minus approaches to the carbon? Now the ionization takes place, and there is movement of electron from the shared electron pair to the bromine. So that is actually again due to the repulsion of the electronic pair on the OH minus and electronegativity of the bromine, that the shared electron pairs, they are now with the bromide ion, and now carbon is developing a positive charge. Now one place is vacant, and in the second step, this was the first step, that is removal of the bromide. And in the second step, now because the carbon atom is attained in the sp3 hybridized state and a planar structure, now from any of the side, from above the plane of the molecule or from the below the plane of the molecule, this hydroxide can attack. And you can see that in the second stage, substitution reaction is complete, and you get a substituted product. So let us draw again the mechanism by using the curved arrow, by putting the arrow pushings. So let us see, first of all, in the step one, the electronic movement is from this bond to the bromide ion, and the electrons are getting transferred over the bromine, as a result of which you get a tertiary butyl cation and a bromide anion. In the second step, the OH minus approaches to the carbon atom, the the planar molecule sp2 hybridized planar carbocation, and it attacks on the carbon, which is positively charged, and getting attached with the carbon. So in the second step you get your product. So what is the difference in the two mechanism that we have just discussed? In the previous mechanism we have seen that the anion is reaching to the substrate, and substitution takes place immediately. And in the second step, first the leaving groups, this is the leaving group light which is leaving the substrate. So this leaving group leaves, and a cation is formed, and then after that attack of nucleophile over this cation takes place. So in the earlier step, the reaction was taking place in one step, and here the reaction is taking place in the two step. So the earlier reaction mechanism is called the SN2 reaction mechanism, and that is because the molecularity of the reaction is 2. The molecularity is what it is 2. So the rate of the reaction will depend on both the concentration of the hydroxide and concentration of the bromide, alkyl bromide. But in the second stage, what happens? The concentration will entirely depend on the rate will entirely depend on the concentration of the alkyl halide here, because the first stage is the ionization stage. Second step is very fast step, so it will not determine the rate of the reaction. So in this manner, the reaction mechanism for different nucleophilic substitution can be discussed. So these nucleophilic substitution reactions, they are actually of three different categories, and they can be at the saturated sp3 carbon atom. And here you can see that this is a propyl butyl bromide, and the attack of the ohm negative it takes place here. In the place of H, you can imagine you have a alkyl group here, so the substitution is taking place at the saturated sp3 carbon atom, and this bromine is actually replaced, and you get a substituted ether, right? Then the substitution at the saturated sp3 carbon atom is again here, and with this different base. So you have now NH2 here. So the nucleophile can be anything. And after the displacement, what happens now? You get a substituted amines. It can be the substitution at unsaturated sp2 carbon atom. It is not that only unsaturated compounds are known for these reactions. Rather, the unsaturated ones can also undergo the nucleophilic substitution. And again, you can see that these type of reaction, they actually leads to the formation of. Here you can see the formation of amide. Substituted amide is getting formed. So you are reacting one uh, a carbonyl compound with primary amine, and you are getting a substituted amide at the end of the reaction. So these substitution reactions, they have some definitions, and let us see what are these. So what is the significance of the saturated carbon atom? So whenever you have a saturated carbon atom, it means that it has four valencies, and these four valencies, they all contain some groups, and no double or triple bond is there. So you call it a saturated carbon atom. And whenever you have a saturated carbon atom, it is always sp3 hybridized. So in the sp3 hybridized state, you can see that the bromine is what? It is a leaving group, right? And it leaves the compound when some ether is formed, some substituted ether is formed. Now, which leaving group can be used? What drives the reaction? So this is the leaving group X, and it is leaving the molecule and forming the substituted ether. The group that is leaving the substrate, forming by forming the ion, you call it a leaving group, and the molecule which is getting attached in place of it, it is called the entering group or the attacking group. So attacking group is what? It is T T3O negative, and sorry, propioxide ion, and the leaving group is the X or any halide. So generally the halides, they are considered to be a good leaving group. So what will be a good leaving group? Which leaves easily. That becomes a good leaving group. All the halides, whether you talk about the fluoride, bromide, iodide, they all are good leaving group. They leave the atom quickly, and also the OSO2R, they are also good leaving group. They leave the substrate easily, and they other groups which can stabilize the negative charge. So if your leaving group is able to stabilize this negative charge, able to hold this charge, in that case, it becomes a good leaving group. So the basic is what? Your leaving group should be able to stabilize the negative charge. So these halide ions, they are able to stabilize the negative charge because they have very high electronegativity, and all the other groups which are able to hold this charge, they are able to form the stable or good leaving group. And it is a single step mechanism, and the nucleophile it adds, and the leaving group is simultaneously displaced in the same step. So you can see the reaction mechanism here. So it is a single step mechanism, and the nucleophilic adds and the leaving group is simultaneously displaced in the same step. So what do you call it? It is a concerted mechanism And what do you mean by a concerted mechanism? Here, the leaving group is simultaneously displaced in the same step. So you call it a concerted mechanism. So when will it happen? When it is easier for the attacking reagent to attack on the carbon here. So when the lesser bulky groups like hydrogen is attached to the carbon atom, now what happens? It is easier to attack for this nucleophile, and it attacks on the carbon atom, and this electron pair is getting shifted on the bromine. So these type of reaction, when you have lesser bulky group attached and the attack is easy for the nucleophile, you get a concerted mechanism, and they are called as the SN2 reaction. Why? Because the molecularity of the reaction is 2, and the rate of the reaction, if you see what are the factors affecting the rate of the reaction. So rate of the reaction will depend upon both the concentration of the substrate as well as concentration of this propoxide ion. So because two molecularity is 2 and the rate is also changing with change in the concentration of the two substrates, so you can say that this is what substitution nucleophilic second order. If you double the concentration of the bromide, what happens? It will increase the rate of the reaction, that will reflect in the rate of the reaction. So this is the energy diagram. You can see this is the bromide, alkyl bromide, which is the starting material, which is our reactant, and it passes through an activation energy barrier. And first, when it attains the activation energy, there is formation of the transition state, and this transition state is actually very high energy molecule, and we also call it the activated complex. So, what does it really mean? Transition state is when this your methoxide propoxide ion is attacking on the carbon, and the bond formation has started, but the bromine ion, it has not left yet. So the bond breaking is also taking place at the same time. So that becomes your activated molecule, activated complex, or your transition state. It is a very high energy molecule, and quickly what happens? The bromine atom, the leaving group, leaves the substrate, and your product, that is ether, it is formed. So finally, after the formation of the activated complex itself, ether is formed as a product. Then again, you can see what is the structure of the transition state. If we are talking about the activated complex, what is that activated complex? So again, you have a bromide here, and it is attacked by the propoxide ion. So this is the structure of the transition state. Here you can see that on this carbon atom, the propoxide ion has attacked, and transition state is formed. So in the transition state, you see uh, the carbon is having carbon is pentavalent in nature. So what would be the shape? It will be pentagonal, trigonal bipyramidal, and on the two apex of the bipyramid, on one of the apex you have bromide ion, and on other apex you have the propoxide ion. And this is the transition state. The bond formation and bond breaking is simultaneous, and this will be having very high energy. So we whenever we are drawing a transition state, we put a bracket around it, and also we are putting a hash sign over it. So it shows that this is activated complex and having a very short time lifetime. So when this type of state is formed, now what happens? Now the product molecule is formed by the removal of bromide. So can you tell that what is the hybridization of the carbon in the transition state? How this transition state is formed? So this transition state is formed because carbon cannot exceed its electronic shell. It has only s and p orbitals, right? In the it has three s and three p orbitals, so it cannot have a d orbital. So how this pentavalent state is formed? So basically, the nucleophile is attacking on the anti-bonding orbitals, which are empty on the carbon atom, and these orbitals are involved in this type of temporary bonding. And after some time, what happens? When the leaving group leaves the molecule, the nucleophile is attached to the bonding molecular orbital. So you can note the partial bonds to the nucleophile and the leaving group, and these partial bonds are actually reflecting what? Simultaneously the bonds are getting formed, and at the same time bonds are getting broken. So the nucleophile, it adds the electron density to the sigma star anti-bonding orbital. So this is the SN2 mechanism, and what happens at the chiral center when you have chirality involved with the carbon atom. So that comes the stereochemical aspect into existence. So what is chirality? We know that in the chirality concept of chirality, carbon is tetrahedral. Yes, it is sp3 hybridized, and it has four valencies, which all are actually have different groups attached to them. So four different groups attached to the tetrahedral carbon, and your carbon becomes chiral. It is now a stereogenic center. Now let us consider this example when the configuration of the carbon atom is S. So this is a particular system of providing the absolute configuration RNS system. So this is the S in which your groups are arranged in the anti-clockwise manner on the carbon atom. So when this S configuration is there in the substrate molecule and the propoxide ion is attacking on the carbon, now what will happen? Now see that in the transition state, you have this trigonal bipyramidal structure, and the propoxide ion is below the plane of the molecule and bromide is above the plane of the molecule. This is our transition state. And when the leaving group leaves the molecule, it will leave from the above of the molecular plane, right? It is present on above the molecule. So it is leaving from there. But the attacking group, it is now present at a position which is just opposite to the earlier group present. So the group which is it has substituted, it has a different orientation, and now the incoming group, the entering group, it is attached to a position which is just opposite to it. So what is happening here in the product? We get a R configuration. So from S configuration, we are getting R configuration in the product. So this is inversion of the configuration, and the inversion is taking place because the attacking group, the attacking nucleophile, it is attacking the carbon atom from a side opposite to the leaving group. So leaving group is attached on this side, but the attacking group is coming from this side, just opposite to the leaving group. So this leads to the inversion of configuration, and when you have taken S configuration, you are getting the R configuration in your product. So example of the SN2 reaction is in the synthesis of suppose insecticide that we are seeing here. The mechanism is very important because it explains how the stereochemistry is controlled. So if you want your product to be a particular configuration, you have to take the substrate. The original starting compound should be having an opposite configuration if the reaction has to be taken place by SN2 mechanism. So this is some alcohol made from the ketone, and this OH negative, it is a poor leaving group. So when it is attacked by SO2Cl, MESO2, sorry, MESO2 group, which is a good leaving group, it comes and attacks the molecule. And now what happens? Because your carbon atom is actually surrounded from all the sides. So the attack will take place from the backside of the carbon. So this is the attacking reagent, and this is also present in the medium, and your MESO3 it is also present in the medium. So you have two nucleophile present in the medium. So this MESO3 is what is it is mesylate group. So this mesylate group is actually a very good leaving group, and now in the presence of your this compound ET3N triethyl amine, it actually behaves as a solvent. So you can also have another attacking reagent here, but there will be a competition between the two attacking reagent, and because the MESO minus is very good leaving group, so it is also a good entering group. And what happens? First, it combines with the carbon atom, but because it is also good leaving group, now it will leave so quickly and on this plane. Now you have another group attached. So this is a particular synthesis for a insecticide, and our simple motive is to see how the SN2 reaction is able to perform the inversion in the configuration. So this synthesis actually depends on the SN2 reaction for formation of the correct enantiomer of the product. So first you can see that the leaving group was on the rear side of the carbon. Then this actually attaches with the MESO3, and finally the inversion of the configuration takes place when your this group is attacking on the carbon atom. So earlier the configuration was R, and in the end product you have a configuration S. So this is a very good example how the stereochemical changes are taking place in the SN2 reaction. It is a two-step mechanism, and the leaving group leaves in the first step and to form a cationic intermediate, and then the nucleophile adds in the second step. This is the mechanism of SN1 reaction, SN1 substitution, which are nucleophilic substitution of one order. So only one molecule is involved in the first step. So the molecularity is one and order is also one. So in the first stage, what happens? It is a slow step and therefore it determines the rate of the reaction. So in the first step, the leaving group leaves the molecule, and as a result of the removal of this bromide ion, now you can see the curved arrow here. It is showing that the shared electron pair, they are going away from the carbon atom and shifting themselves to the bromide. And as a result of this, a bromide ion is actually separated from the molecule. It is the leaving group and it leaves the molecule first. So on the approach of the nucleophile, the leaving group leaves the molecule and you get an intermediate cation. Now you see that in the intermediate cation, the carbon is sp2 hybridized, and due to which it is attaining a planar structure. So now the second step is what addition of the nucleophile, and it is a very fast step and it has no role in the determination of rate of the reaction. So now this is the addition of the nucleophile over the carbon atom, and finally, like you can see that the oxygen with this its lone pair of electron attacking on the carbon, and now what happens? The positive charge on the carbon, now it is coming on the oxygen itself. So you can see that the movement of the electron, which is shown by the curved arrow, it is also showing the movement of the formal charge. So this formal charge is now coming on the oxygen. Now again the electrons between the oxygen and hydrogen, they are drawn by the oxygen. So electrons of this shared pair, they are coming towards the oxygen, and the formal charge on oxygen is moving on the hydrogen. So now, because the hydrogen is getting a positive charge, it is removed as minus H plus. So one proton is removed here, and as a result, you get your product. So this is a substituted nucleophile where the rate of the reaction is actually proportional to the concentration of only substrate, and your nucleophile is not involved anywhere. So the molecularity of the reaction is 1, and as a result of this, what happens? These type of reaction mechanisms, they are called SN1 reaction. So what happens if I double the concentration of bromide here? If I double the concentration of bromide, the rate will also get doubled. But if I double the concentration of the alcohol, alcohol is what? It is my attacking group. So it will have no change on the rate of the reaction. The rate of reaction will be unaffected by change in the concentration of nucleophile. It is not a part of the rate expression here. Let us see the potential energy diagram. So this is the first transition state, which is formed when intermediate cation is formed. Then before the intermediate cation is formed, then this cation is your intermediate, having a little lesser energy, because it is having a bit long life as compared to the two transition state. Then your second transition state is formed, which is actually accompanied by the attack of the nucleophile. So another transition state is formed, and then finally we get our product, like the substituted ether is generated. So let us now discuss what are the stereochemical aspect of the SN1 reaction. So we suppose if we started from the S configuration on the carbon atom. So what will be the first step in the SN1 reaction? Our leaving group will leave the substrate molecule. So because the leaving group have left the molecule, now there is a room for the nucleophile to attack on the carbon atom from any of the direction, right? So that attack can be from any of the direction. It can come from above the molecule or below the molecule, because now it has attained a planar structure in the sp2 hybridized state. This is a planar structure. Now on this planar structure, this alcohol can attack from upside of the molecule or downside of the molecule. So let us see the first case. When the OH minus is attacking on the molecule from the lower side, now you get a R configuration, and because there is a 50-50 chance of this thing, this attack can be it is having 50-50 chance. The attack can be from above or below. So 50% R configuration is attained and 50% S configuration is attained. And as a result, if you see what is the what is the optical activity of the product. So you get a racemic product here. So racemic product is does not mean that the optical activity is lost. Rather, it shows that the R and S type of isomers, they are formed in the equal quantity. So overall, your product becomes the racemic one, because of the equal probability of the nucleophile attack on any of the side of the molecule. So now the two enantiomers, because they are formed in 1:1 ratio, and the cations, they are intermediate, they are not the transition state. So you should understand what is the basic difference between an intermediate species and a transition state. So whenever an intermediate is formed, it is having a little bit higher energy, higher stability as compared to the transition state. Transition states are nothing but the activated complex, and they cannot be shown by a particular type of structure. Like you can give the hybridization in case of the intermediate, but you cannot give hybridization for a transition state. Transition state, they're always having higher energy as compared to the intermediate, and a lower lifetime as compared to the intermediate. So the cation that is generated during the course of the SN1 reaction, it is an intermediate and not any transition state. Now let us compare the two reactions, the SN1 and SN2 reaction mechanism. So here 1 and 2, they refer to the molecularity of the reaction. The number of species is in the rate of the expression. So SN1 is a two-step reaction, but the molecularity is 1. And order is 1. And SN2 is one-step reaction, and order of the reaction is 2. SN2 mechanisms, they are accompanied by inversion of the configuration, and SN1 reactions, they are accompanied by the racemization of the substrate. So some other substitution mechanisms, they can also be shown by the SN2 mechanism. Like one of the examples taken here, where this amine anion is attacking on the double bond, and this type of substitution is taking place, which result into the shifting of the double bond. So you can see the curved arrows, they are showing the movement of the electrons. So the electronic pair, the unshared electron pair on the nitrogen atom is attacking on the terminal carbon here, and this leads to the repulsion of the bonded electron pair towards another carbon. And this RHN is now attached with the carbon here, and the electrons are particularly on this carbon, they are displaced here, so double bond is coming here. And as a result of this, now the electron of this bond, they are going towards the bromine, and the bromide is removed. This is also a type of SN2 reaction, where the attack is taking place on one carbon atom, and the leaving group is leaving another carbon. So if I do a substitution reaction, what will be the factors which will be governing whether the mechanism will be a particularly SN1 or SN2 type of mechanism? What will be the factors which are determinative in this things? So first of all, see the nature of the substrate. The substrate structure matters a lot, and here the two things are very important. First is the steric hindrance, and second is the cationic stability. Like I say, like we have seen right now, that if your carbon atom on which the nucleophilic attack has to be taken place, if it is sterically crowded, in that case SN1 reaction will be preferred, because in that case it is not possible that your incoming attacking reagent is attaching on the carbon, and at the same time your leaving group is present on the carbon. So that the pentavalent transition state cannot be formed when your carbon is having steric crowding around it. So similarly, unhindered substrate, like you can see here, it is more likely to undergo the SN2 reaction, but a hindered substituted substrate, which is having bulky group around the carbon, they are more likely to undergo the SN1 reaction. Then another factor is the cationic stability. So like you can see that in the SN1 reaction, okay, carbocation is generated during the reaction. So that intermediate, which intermediate is more stable, that will decide the course of the reaction. So your tertiary carbocation is having higher stability, followed by the secondary carbocation, followed by the primary carbocation, and finally the methyl cation. So from these two things, we can conclude that primary alkyl halide, they are more likely to undergo SN2 reaction, but a tertiary alkyl halide is more prone towards the SN1 reaction. Then a secondary alkyl halide, it can do both type of mechanisms, but it depends on the nature of the nucleophile. So if a good nucleophile is there, it will favor the SN2 reaction, and if we have a weak nucleophile, then we will see a SN1 mechanism. But there are some exceptions also to these guidelines, and there are some other factors which increases the cationic stability. Suppose if we have a benzyl cation involved, so it is always more stable because the resonance come into play, and this gives extra stability to the benzyl cation. So it is more stable than your aliphatic carbocation. And similarly, if a double bond is present in conjugation to the positive charge, in that case also the carbocation is exceptionally more stable. So they are also playing a role here in determination of the cationic stability. Uh, in adjacent to benzyl or allyl group, it increases the rate of the SN2 reaction because they are stabilizing the molecule by stabilizing the transition state. So you can see that when you have a benzyl group attached to the bromide, what it will do? It will stabilize the stabilize the transition state, and therefore the SN2 reaction will be preferred because the orbital overlap, it lowers the transition state energy and makes the reaction faster. Well, now let us see what is the effect of solvents. So solvent effect, they can be complex, and uh, solvent, they are actually, they stabilize the cation. If they stabilize the cation, then what will happen? The rate will be the rate of the SN1 reaction will increase, because in the SN1 reaction what happens? There is a formation of ion. So whatever factor which is stabilizing the ion, it will increase the chance of SN1 reaction. So these include the dipolar aprotic solvents such as dimethyl formamide (DMF) and dimethyl sulfoxide (DMSO). These are the two aprotic solvents, dipolar aprotic solvents, and they increase the chances of SN1 reaction mechanism. For SN2 reactions, the situation is more complex. If you have a non-polar solvent which can speed up the reaction in a situation where transition state is less polar, then what happens? Then the localized ion, so the product is neutral. So in situation where a charged product is formed by the reaction of the neutral substrate, then a polar solvent such as DMF, it will be better because the transition state is more polar. And in the dipolar aprotic solvent, suppose you have taken DMF, which can also make the anionic nucleophile more reactive in the SN2 reaction because they solvate the cation and make the anion freer to react. So the polar protic solvent like water, alcohol, carboxylic acid, they can retard the rate of SN2 reaction by solvating the anion and making it less reactive. So, like you can see that by changing the choice of solvent, we can actually prefer a particular mechanism for nucleophilic substitution reactions. Then, what is the effect of nucleophile? So, in general, it has been seen that more reactive the nucleophile, it will favor the SN2 reaction. So, anything which supports the structure of the nucleophile and make it stable, make it effective, they will favor the SN2 reaction. So, this is the fairly logical, like you can see here. The examples of the reactive nucleophile, like if I have a alkoxide ion or amide ion as the attacking reagent, alkyl anions, they are very, very reactive. So they will favor the SN2 reaction. Then some relatively stable anions. They are also good nucleophile because now the anionic structure is more stable. So the anions of the thiols, anion of the phenols, they are the neutral phosphine. They all are also good nucleophile. But what about the less reactive nucleophiles? So the alcohols, they are not deprotonated. Once they will deprotonated, they will be good nucleophile, right? But if they are not deprotonated alcohols, they are not good nucleophile. Amines, like when the deprotonation is done, they become amides and they become reactive nucleophile. But when the deprotonation is not there, RNH2, they are not good nucleophile. And the stabilized nucleophile like acetate. So they are also the less reactive nucleophile, and they will favor the SN1 reaction. So in the SN2 reaction, we have seen that the inversion of the configuration takes place. A good nucleophile, not very hindered substrate, a good leaving group, and then you see the SN2 reaction. But when you have a weak nucleophile, more hindered substrate, and potential for the stable cation, then you will get a racemic product, and the SN1 reaction mechanism will be favored in this case. And finally, we can also predict the course of the reaction mechanism, whether the reaction will take place by the SN1 or SN2 reaction. So now look at the reaction here, and this will be your assignment for the today's class. You will find out that what will be the reaction mechanism in this type of nucleophilic substitution. So the curved arrows, they are showing actually the direction of the electronic movement, and you have to predict what is the mechanism of this reaction, SN1 or SN2. Then the effect of the tosylate. It is very common. Tosylate groups are very commonly used, and in the tosylate group, you see that the protection of the hydroxide group is performed by using the TSCl. Tosylate chloride is used, and the hydroxide group is now protected. Once the reaction is performed, now what happens? The hydrolysis is done, and your again hydroxide group is regenerated. So the tosylate is very good leaving group, and it is very commonly used in the synthesis for the protection of alcohol, and for the protection of the alcoholic group they are used. So again, you have a question from this lecture. If you have understand this lecture now, let us see why the following happens. Why the configuration you can see here, the NMe2, the bromine is what? Bromine is the leaving group here in the substrate, and the nucleophilic attack is taking place by Me2N minus. So when it attacks on the carbon atom, the bromine leaves. So you, how can you predict that this leaving group is leaving from the H bond on the substrate, but the incoming group is having a dash bond, wedge bond? So, how will you predict this change here? And that is the quiz from today's lecture. These are the references, and that is all from my side for today. In the coming lectures, we will discuss about more reaction mechanisms which are commonly known in organic chemistry. For today, thank you so much.